here at the ABET Symposium for another edition of Undercooled. Today, our guest is Christina Haden, who's at Lehigh University, and she's the associate chair and a teaching professor in the mechanical engineering and mechanics department. I've known Christine for about a year or two because I've seen her talk at ABET, and her talk is amazing. I've heard her give two talks, one on women in engineering, but this other one on assessment that I think is really important for any engineering discipline to hear about. So first, welcome,
Thank you,
Christina, and why don't you tell us a little bit about how you became an engineer and get your job?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Steve. I am the, teaching and associate chair right now in mechanical engineering at Lehigh University, and I don't know if I was imagining I would become the associate chair. I'm the first woman in 150 years of our history of our department, so that's
Wow.
not lost on me. But how did I get there? So I'm French Canadian. I don't know if you knew that. And I arrived in the U.S. about 26 years ago now, and went to UVA, got my undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. At the time, I wanted to do biomedical engineering, but then somebody said that doesn't exist, and I had to pick something. And I said, well, I like to take things apart and build them. So I went with mechanical engineering, and I am not regretting that. I thought it was a really good career path, because then I mixed it with biomedical engineering for the master's, and I did my PhD back in mechanical engineering. And it was really interesting to go between the two sides on that. And I can really help my students now understand where they really should be when they're interested in both of those fields, because I've seen the true biomedical and I've seen the biomechanics side, and I can tell them where they're trying to go. Now here, I did a postdoc at Lehigh and then started teaching. I was passionate about teaching, still am, and that's how I.
So what courses do you teach?
I teach statics and strength of materials. It's the fundamentals of engineering mechanics at our department, and so it's a sophomore level class, introductory level class in mechanical engineering. I teach thermodynamics, and I teach capstone. So I get to see the bookends. I like to say it that way: the bookends of our students, how they come into the program, and then how they leave it. And so that informs a lot about how I want to modify our program. But I also teach a fun class, if I can throw that in there.
Sure.
Yeah, I teach a class called Leonardo da Vinci, Artist and Engineer.
Oh my goodness.
And I teach it with somebody from the theater department. And so I teach the engineering side, and we analyze the engineering feats that he did 500 years ago. And she comes at it from the art history side, and we have them culminate with a kinetic art project. It's so fun.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't know you did that. So I have to tell you sometime about my program in Paris, my art research experience for undergraduates. Yeah. And there's a laboratory there in the Louvre in the basement, underneath the Tuileries. And in the very bottom of it is a ion accelerator, because they do particle-induced X-ray emission. And they built it there because the most expensive part of cultural heritage research is the insurance to move something off-site. So they wheel Mona Lisa right there.
Oh my goodness.
And the world's expert on scientific evaluation of Mona Lisa had been the head of that laboratory, Michel Menu, who's a synchrotron physicist who took Mona Lisa to Daisy, the synchrotron. So I'll have to show you all
please.
that.
I would love to hear more about that.
We digress.
Yes.
So how did you get involved with ABET, and how did you get involved with doing assessment of learning?
Well, I was voluntold maybe a long time ago that maybe ABET would be good for me as a new faculty. And
meaning we're going to dump the ABET self-study on you.
I was very luckily asked if I wanted to do it. And I don't think I understood the full spectrum of what that meant at the time. And I was like, sure, I like a challenge. And also, I think that the value of assessment is grand, right? And we really need the ability to look at ourselves as a department and understand what are we doing well and what are we not doing well to become better. And I'm really invested in the outcomes of our students. So I thought that meshed well. I think that's why they asked me. So I said yes. And then I went to an ideal I went to lots of different workshops, and I gained my footing in the understanding of what ABET meant, and I started liking it more, I guess you would say. I drank the Kool-Aid. And then I went to the Ideal training with Gloria, and after the training, she asked me if I would become a facilitator with her. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So how did you get involved? I mean, obviously, Gloria's been very
She's
involved
a mentor of mine. Yeah.
with promoting the concept of performance
Yes.
indicators.
Yes.
And but your approach is a little different than
Yeah.
hers because you have this two-step one.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you do assessment and where you think this fits in, not just for ABET, but for
Yeah.
anything in education.
Yeah. So it's interesting because the more I've spent time with Gloria, the more I learned that truly what the ABET process is way more flexible than a lot of people realize. And it
Right.
has a root in a truly genuine approach to making education better. So in that regard, I felt like I had flexibility to do something different than what was being taught to me. So the two-part performance indicator that you're referring to came about because we were having very genuine conversations in my department about our student achievement, and it comes from the natural conversations of, oh, these students are not doing what we want them to on a final exam. And I turned those questions of they're not doing well into, well, what are we doing to make sure that they could do well?
Right.
And then the question became, well, are we assessing those outcomes? Let's not just, infer what we think the students know and don't know, but let's actually turn it into an assessable point. So that's where the performance indicator came in. And there's a lot of examples of this, but the one that I've been reporting on and that you saw in the talk was on mechanical engineering. Students need to be able to perform and identify the forces that are acting on objects.
Right.
And that's a very foundational piece of information for mechanical engineering students to be successful. And so we identified that really that development starts very early in the program in the courses that I'm teaching in the first year, the sophomore year, and it evolves over time and it gets more complex. So the performance indicator about how do students formulate the free body diagrams and are they able to understand them is a consistent one
Mhm.
throughout our program. It's an overarching goal for our program to teach them how to do that well. And then if we're seeing in the senior level courses that they're struggling, then what I did was modify the performance indicator and go back in time, go
Mhm.
into a more formative stage and probe the places where they should be learning it to get feedback on how well they were doing it. So you can see it as
Right.
a way to measure changes. So then we would go back and say, okay, are we teaching it the right way? Should we be more creative and innovative in our original courses earlier on in the curriculum so that they integrate the concepts of free body diagrams and other things
Mhm.
more fundamentally? And are we making changes that are effective? So that's why I wanted to have this consistency in the performance indicator, but it grows with the student. It grows with the student. It gets more complex over time. The example I give in that talk was, a free body diagram on a very simple system in your first or second year in engineering involves a handful of forces and moments. But then by the time you're in more complex engineering cases later in your curriculum, you have to be able to understand the variety and the complexities that are associated with those courses. But the foundational knowledge that we're trying to teach them is the same.
Mhm.
So that's the premise of that.
So I presume you give them a word question and ask them to draw the force body diagram
Yes.
that is for that.
Yeah.
And so you see how as the assignments get more complex, you expect they should get better, and so
Correct.
then you test them again.
Yeah.
Do you intervene student by student? If you see a student who maybe gets it at first, but has trouble going to more complex ones, when all of a sudden now there's a rotational axis and some other kind of rotational axis. This is like the
Mhm.
guy sitting on a turntable spinning a plate, and you're like pretend, all these different frames of references.
Mhm.
It gets very
Mhm. Oh
complicated.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And so how do interventions to try to help those students who aren't doing well, or aren't you there yet?
Well, I would say at the program level where we're at now, we're not following one student at a time. So we have 400 students in our programs. It's fairly big. And we also need to take a big picture view of the ensemble of our student achievements. So we're going to
Yes,
say in this one class versus that one,
I see.
how are they overall doing? But within one class that I have control over, like in my statics and strength and materials class, that one I do for sure follow individual achievements of my students on their ability to do free body diagrams. And I think that one of the things I really try to share with my audience today was that the fact that we identified as a program that this was something we thought was really important for our students to achieve, it brought awareness not just to me as my ABET person in the department that I'm
Right.
looking at it from a 1,000-foot view, but to the faculty who are hearing the conversation and we're discussing the performance indicator of this in different courses. We're focusing on that as one of the central things that we should be focusing on for our students to be able to do in our own courses. So,
Right.
as much as I would like to have the minutia of the course by course control, I'm not teaching all of those classes. But the performance indicator having been established is a message both to my faculty and to our students that this matters, that
Right.
we have to make sure and track them and kind of apart from the other learning outcomes in a course. This one is really important. And then that might be the one we do longitudinal tracking on in the context of one class. But
Right.
no, I don't do one student to student between classes.
But you do it within a class, but you're
Yes,
also doing more longitudinal
I
studies
am.
across many different classes. That's
Yes.
that's hard to do.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing a few instances of this
Right.
and building out.
Right.
So it's ABET is a big ship that takes a long time to change the direction. If I inherited a program that had been
Mhm.
accredited or has been accredited since 1836, and I was given some performance indicators and ways that we would look at student
Yeah.
outcome, and in some ways historically, I don't think it's just our program. We just do the assessment because we're told we have to do it, but that's not
Right.
the way to look at it. So I'm
But
trying to.
again, I listen to you and I see something much bigger than ABET.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not too worried about the ABET. I mean, we do ABET
Yeah.
outcomes for compliance.
Yes, it's not about ABET. I
And,
agree. Yeah.
but you know, I've been teaching a team based replacement of large lecture, and I'm dying to know, does it have an impact on the students?
Exactly.
And my numbers aren't great because it's a service course.
Yeah.
So most of the class are people from other departments. It's their
Yes.
last class
Yes.
they'll ever take in
Yeah.
materials.
Oh wow.
But that group that's material students, how do they do compared to other treatments
Mm-hmm.
in, say, their senior design class?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that my students do better because I have anecdotal evidence because I
Yes.
know them all and I see how they're doing.
Where
And
there's
I
smoke, there
think
is
they're the
fire,
best.
right?
I think they're the best ones in the department. But I also know it's not so easy because there's also many other amazing students
Yeah.
who took the other treatment.
Yeah.
So it might
Yeah.
not really matter that much. But how do you know unless you do a longitudinal study?
Well, I would trust your intuition. You have a lot of good intuition, years of experience, and I think that where you see some signs of success and the anecdotal feedback is not just that, but the statistics matter too. It is very hard to disaggregate what your effect of your treatment is specifically on the downstream and how to uh, disaggregate it from the other effects that could be impacting their student learning. But uh, to me, the data and what it says is the beginning of a story of inquiry. It's like you
Right.
have to be a detective to try and figure out what are the layers of complexity that are happening underneath of that.
Right.
So one of the examples, that we're really becoming aware of right now is we're looking at reimagining our first year engineering experiences. The students who are in our classes right now, this is where the complexity of the problems and the questions of why things are happening the way they are comes up. Is I'm realizing the students who are in the classes right now, they just they were about 2 or 3 years old when the iPhone came out. So we're talking about the very first generation of students who have been raised on, for some of them, apps, screens, complete detachment of the physical reality
Mm.
that prepares you for engineering concepts that you really need. So that has a humongous impact on our student body and how
Right.
they learn, how well they understand things what's their pre-knowledge coming into the classroom. So what I'm trying to say is the effect of a treatment and how downstream it affects them is one of many
Sure.
factors. And I did some statistics in my master's program when I was working on the effects of acetylcholine and so forth on endothelial cells. But to disaggregate in a non-controllable system, right? We can't have positive and negative controls for our students. It would be unethical, right?
Yeah.
So we have to do the best that we can and look at the things that matter. That's where I look at it. And with a genuine interest like you have of what am I impacting? How am I impacting the students?
Right.
Following your intuition is the first step. And
Okay.
then looking at the data over time. Yeah.
Where do you see your assessment methods going in the future? What's your next step?
Oh, I'm turning my eyes towards the effect of the first year.
Okay.
I really do think there's a lot of room for improvement in how do we welcome our students, especially in the context of them having very much so less hands-on experiences before they come to college.
Uh-huh.
And I think that if we're going to stay alive as an academic institution, like globally, we need to be providing our students with real tangible skills by the time they graduate. So the sooner we get all engineering students, not just mechanical engineering students, all engineering students with the ability to design and to think critically about integrating multiple pieces of information
Sure.
and learning how to build things early on, I think then you build the foundation on which then they assimilate the information from the more theoretical classes that they still need
Right.
way better. And that's my hypothesis and my premise. So I'm going to be using all the assessment tools that I can find to be able to validate that. And hopefully I'll see what the data says.
So you told me you're redesigning the first year
Yeah.
experience.
Not just me, but yeah.
What was the first year experience before you started
Yeah.
at Lehigh?
Well, it's still that right now. And it's been that way for 150 years.
Uh-huh.
And, we have a really, really phenomenal program. The first year, though, has not changed. And it was based on the core material from physics, chemistry, and all the basic sciences
So they don't
and
take an
math.
engineering school course.
They do, though. They
Okay.
do. They only get 4 credits, now 3. We just changed it to 2 and 3. So 5 credits in the first year of engineering. 5 credits of engineering in a total of, 20 something,
So what is that
almost 30.
5?
30
What's
maybe
in that
2.
5 credits?
They get some coding. It's changed to Raspberry Pi, some coding
Sure.
in Python, interfacing a little bit of robotics. And then the other course is more investigation to understand where you want to go. So the presumption is that the students don't know what kind of engineering they want to
Sure.
do. And this is an exploratory engineering course where they, in silos, go visit each one of the departments. They hear us talk about it, and then
Okay.
it should help them decide on where they want to go. We want to do way more than that.
Right. Yeah, I know we changed ours
Yeah.
way back. We got a dean who had developed a lot of this at Carnegie Mellon.
Yes.
The first year engineering programs.
gosh, yes.
Was Steve Director.
Yeah.
And he brought that to Michigan, and we call it Engine 100. Every freshman engineer must take the course.
Yes.
And it's a design, build, test, and repeat course
That's great.
coupled with technical communication. We used to do tech com
Nice.
at the end, and that was stupid. So now we do it
Yeah,
at the beginning.
that's it.
And oh my God, it's that revolutionized. I mean, I remember the old way.
Yeah.
Nobody could write.
Yeah.
Nobody had any idea what design was. They didn't get that till their capstone year.
Exactly.
And now I teach my intro to materials course to sophomores,
Yeah.
and I give little mini design projects like design a component of a superhero costume.
Nice.
And I don't tell them anything about design because they all know how to do it.
And what year are they? They're juniors?
Well, they're sophomores to seniors, but
Sophomores
it's
to- okay.
focused, it's a sophomore level course.
Okay.
But because they've had that Engine 100,
They're more capable. Yeah.
they're incredibly
That's
capable.
amazing.
They understand everything I'm
That's
asking
amazing.
them to do.
Yeah.
So I presume you've looked at what other
Oh, yeah.
institutions
Yes.
do.
Yes.
So what are your
studies.
plans for Lehigh?
Okay. It's really exciting, actually. So we want to do it's a 3-pillar process. And the main pillar is these modules that would be experiential learning that would bring together a lot of different disciplines. So it'd be truly interdisciplinary. So it'd be the idea is you'd have multiple faculty design a project that touches on all of their different disciplines.
Okay.
And then the students would come in and see that around this one concept. And we have a lot of ideas, and we're going to be piloting 3 this coming year. So it's a ramp up, gradual ramp up. But the ideas are central and can touch on many different departments. And then we're going to be embedding sociocultural, economic contexts, writing, conversations, so communication, oral exams, so that the concepts and their understanding, the competencies are going to be assessed in novel ways for us, certainly, and non-traditional maybe is the way to say that. So it wouldn't just be exam-based competencies. And then we're also thinking about the fluidity of time, that being able to reach competency doesn't have to be prescribed by this traditional times of 3 months and then a little break and then 3 months again, and then you better have collected all of the information you need, or else you can't pass into the next barrier. What if we had more of a transitionary competency-based achievement, and maybe you pass through that earlier and then you can go on to the next level, and if you need remediation, we recognize that and we help you along. So we're putting in place these systems and structures that would support the students. And we're thinking about uh, faculty and residents that would oversee cohorts of these students, and they would give the theme of the year. For example, it might be one engineering professor with a professor from the College of Arts and Sciences, maybe in the humanities of some content, maybe sociology. And the pairing of those 2 faculty would give a flavor, and they would be part of kind of overseeing the conversations, because we're making this a residency program. We want our students to be in the space that we would create for these students a lot more
That is
frequently
exciting.
and more consistently. And then I don't know if the word supervised, but assisted in their learning in a different way. So the spaces matter as much as what we're trying to teach them. So there's 3 pillars, right? There's the modules, which are very hands-on, open-ended design, but assisted around interdisciplinary problems. Then there's the competencies. So our goal is to find the concepts, the core competencies that they're trying to learn in the math and the physics and the chemistry, bring those out, and then embed them in the material that we're trying to teach them in these modules.
Right.
So I'm hoping, and I did a pilot of something in a math lab this semester. I just finished it, where it's showing them the application of math that they're learning in their calculus.
Right.
So not just theoretical writing. So they need to learn how to do the derivations, but they're losing right now the context of why it matters.
Right.
So we're hoping in the first year we would teach them why it matters to learn the math, why it matters to learn the chemistry.
Are you putting
the
that in
physics.
a computational context?
Computational, experimental, you name it, numerical, everything.
Nice.
That's what I did with my math lab.
That's great.
So that's another one. So the competencies become brought into and embedded and truly embedded with the modules.
Right.
That's the second pillar. The third one, and this is born of the idea that when we see our super stellar students, we recognize like a fingerprint, a trend. And that is that they usually invest themselves in some kind of extracurricular, like a Baja or a space rocket project or
Right.
Mars rover or something, where they really they absorbed it in a way, and it became part of their identity.
Yep.
And they gave more time than any class that they
Yes.
ever really got into. And we want to see that passion be brought into not just be extracurricular, but co-curricular. The idea is that if you see what makes students really, really successful, why not tell the other ones who didn't know? You should probably try that out. So we're still fleshing that part out. How do you give credit for and recognize co-curricular experiences? One of the ideas is that there's value in everything.
Yeah.
Everything that the students do. And if they find their passion, we would give them the opportunity to cross-pollinate in some subset groups that would be, the idea is similar to, in graduate school, we would have literature review panels, right? We would get together as graduate students, and one person would read a paper, and then
Yep.
you'd present on it.
Yep.
that was an amazing opportunity to learn such varied, research opportunities. So this is similar in the context of the co-curriculars. We
Sure.
want students to be the athletes and the really invested in design experiences. Whatever it is that they love to do
Yeah.
on the side, they come back and they talk about it. And
Oh, that's
maybe it's
great.
a leadership opportunity that they learn something valuable about. Maybe it's the grit and the endurance and the ability to really dedicate yourself to something. Whatever it is that they take out of it, I want them to share it back out with the other students in
Oh,
their
that's great.
sub-cohort. So
That's
those are
awesome.
some moving parts. There's a lot other things, obviously.
I love the idea of pairing it with a faculty member from the humanities or something else. You know,
Like artists in residence, but professors in residence,
right.
right? And they
No,
can
it's great.
invest their whole heart into a cohort and feel like they're their people, and they want to fascinate. They want to fasten the. No, that's not the right word in English.
Well, it's,
Build the cohort
I'm going to
with a
say the
flavor.
word, it's because diversity matters. And you get a diversity of ideas and opinions coming from things from, totally different approaches. And it's so valuable to hear all of those things
Yes.
to actually get your design. So I don't know if you know, I teach a course with an archaeology professor.
Yes, you told me.
Yeah,
We've always
and-
had such lovely conversations.
And it has been
Yeah.
so amazing
Yeah.
to work with him.
Yes.
And I guess it's also one of my biggest disappointments about becoming a professor was I thought I was going to get to hang out with all the other professors all over campus. But nobody ever does that because you're so
Limited
focused
time.
on what you're doing. You
I
don't
know.
have time
I know.
to do that.
I know.
So I think this will be a win-win for both the students and the professors involved.
Right? To be dedicated, to have the time, and you make the time for that. And
That's right.
I know.
It's going to be amazing.
I know. I hope I get to be one of them at one point. That's my
That
hope.
is fantastic. So when do you think you said you did your first trial this term?
So, well, tangentially, I wasn't necessarily directly sponsored by this program to do that, but the data that I'm going to be getting out of this this experiment with doing a laboratory for calculus is directly aligned with this. The idea is
Sure.
application
Yeah.
of a concept, and the competencies we're going to see if they do better with having seen the application of math. There were 3 different modules in that math lab. And then I'm hoping to do a real module full-fleshed in the next year. So we're going to do 3 full modules. I'm going to be responsible for one.
So this will start in the fall?
Yes, we're going to start one in the fall.
Nice.
And then we're going to have 2 in the spring. And then the idea is we're going to roll it out 2027.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is really
Yeah,
exciting.
it's very ambitious and
Yes.
exciting. You got to love it when your dean is like, let's make this amazing and dream big.
And do the
Isn't that amazing?
experiment.
Yes.
Because how are you going to know unless
Get the
you try
data.
it?
Yeah, we're working with our College of Ed, and we have dedicated faculty who are going to starting to look at the longitudinal tracking of those students, and they're already doing that with the math students who I just taught this
Right.
spring. I'm
That's
super
great.
excited.
Well, our nice, amazingly quiet, out of the way spot has gotten incredibly noisy. We didn't realize people would be walking around here. But I'm going to, just trust in our noise reduction software and a little bit of AI magic.
There you go.
Hopefully we can make most of them go away.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for doing
Steve.
this.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything else that you'd like to plug?
Oh,
Shameless advertisements
I
or
don't
anything.
I don't think of anything as being plugs. If I don't believe in it, I don't know if I want to share it.
Well,
There's
is there
no-
anything that you'd like to share that we haven't talked about?
No, I'm really invested in this first year engineering revamp that I think is super exciting. I guess genuinely I can say I think that the program that we're working on and the experience for students
Yeah.
in mechanical engineering is just, I wish I was a student there right now. We're thinking about Industry 4.0 and how do we adapt to and bring our students to be ready for that in a real, based on data, based on what works. I have amazing colleagues who are constantly thinking about how can they do their classes, but I couldn't ask for more, truly, genuinely. So that's all. That's all I have to
That's
say.
great. It's a shame. It used to be that the Gordon conferences allowed you to have education meetings. But then they got all worried about money, and unless you had 150 or 170 people,
Yeah.
you were out.
Yeah.
But I bet that having a Gordon conference on first year programs in engineering
My
might be
goodness.
a big enough draw. That would be a lot of fun.
Why don't we make it happen?
Yeah. I mean, not yet. You want to make sure that you have something to
I know.
talk
I
about.
know. Well,
So,
there's a
but
lot of wonderful
starting
people who've done
now
it.
to talk to them
Yeah.
for, a few years from now. Have you ever been to a Gordon conference?
Never been. I've
Oh,
heard
they're
of them.
amazing.
I
They're
can
just amazing.
imagine. What a
And
great idea.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I learned a lot. We used to do introductory material science Gordon conferences, and we would get like 100 people, but it was really challenging to get up to that number, and
Yeah.
that threshold went away.
Yeah, I've always thought of the Gordon conferences as being very small. I guess
Yeah,
that
but
was not by
to make
design.
it work, they need like at least
Yeah.
150 people.
I'm sure we could get that many.
For if we think of it for all of
Yeah.
engineering,
Yeah.
with
Because
all the
usually they're discipline
disciplines,
specific.
yeah,
So
then
they're
it'll
narrow
be
and niche.
very easy.
I think so.
Right. That's a problem with materials. We're tiny. You
Yes.
saw some of those plots with the number of students in each discipline. Here's mechanical engineering, and everything else is
No.
tiny, except they don't include computer science in that.
They don't. They take it aside. They
Yeah.
definitely take it aside.
Because it would dwarf all of
But
us.
every time I get a chance, I plug material science and how important it is
Well, thank you.
and how synergistic our programs and our disciplines
Right.
are.
And they have a
Truly.
great program at Lehigh. I evaluated them once
Did you
a very
really?
long time ago, and it was great.
They're doing great things now
Yeah.
too.
And I saw your multidisciplinary design courses,
Yes,
your
the
capstone, which was
capstone.
great.
I know.
And I know some of the people on the ABET team were complaining, oh, this isn't run by my department. It's like, so what?
Oh no,
Where does
no.
it say that in the criteria? Huh?
Thank you. Thank you. We want, I mean, that would make interdisciplinary capstones impossible if you had
That's
to have a
right.
head from every
No,
department.
it's so much better. And
Yeah.
we started doing one at Michigan,
Uh-huh.
but we're big and we're top heavy and bureaucratic.
Mhm.
And some people started doing it between mechanical engineering and materials and electrical,
Nice.
but they
It's a
did
good
it
combo.
without permission.
Oh no.
They just did it,
No.
and it was amazing. But because of
And then
politics,
it got shut down.
and then they got shut off.
No.
Yeah,
See,
it was terrible.
I'm so sorry for you because I think, and I've talked about this with some of my colleagues, I think Lehigh just happens to be the right size between not too big
Yeah.
and not too small, where if the administration believes in what we're doing,
You can get
they
it,
can
yeah.
support us, and they've been supporting us in some really cool stuff.
Well, had this group
Yeah.
gone through the right channels, it would have been
It would have
fine.
worked. Oh,
Because the dean, most of our deans have been very progressive
yeah.
when it comes to trying new pedagogies. I mean, I've tried crazy stuff, and I have gotten so much support from our administration.
Great.
It
I
just
feel like you've
wasn't
had
even
super creative stuff. So just
Well,
they went to the wrong people.
but a lot of it doesn't work, right? That's the nature of research. But they still were so supportive, and I to this day, I'm so appreciative of the resources they gave me. They went and bought me like 125 tables because I wanted to try my thing at scale with 100. No, it was 23 tables, all new furniture,
I remember you
whiteboards,
telling me about
and
this.
that was hard. The room wasn't quite right, and
Right.
it killed us
Yep.
because
I was taking
I,
notes
I
when you
didn't
told me
get
about
the
this.
sight lines. And,
Yeah.
But my latest experiment was using this book, Grading for Growth, and a lot of what you were saying seems to. Have you read that book?
Yeah. We were talking about that
Yeah.
in our committee meetings about the FIRE, the first year reimagined experience. So,
Okay.
Yeah. We talk about grading for growth. So one of our colleagues, that's like his specialty. So he's going to be developing new assessment methods around this idea.
So I use grading tables,
Uh-huh.
just like they suggest in the
Yeah.
book, and because I really took to heart their comments that just because it's a percent doesn't mean you should average it.
Yeah.
And we have this problem in material science because students are always confused by composition and fraction of phases.
Yeah.
And the reason they're confused is they're both percentages.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think, oh, they have the same units, it must be the same.
No.
But they don't.
Yeah.
And so we're now living in this world where Canvas and Blackboard and all these things they build into the assessment system that you grade everything 0 to 100 and then do a weighted average to find your grade.
Mm-hmm.
But you're mixing units. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
No.
And so, when I read that in
Dimensional
the book,
analysis.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just because it's percents doesn't mean anything. It's you're hiding the units by making it dimensionless. And when you do a dimensional analysis, you're very aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, indeed.
So anyway, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping, I haven't asked him yet, but I've met Robert Talbert before. He came, before he finished the book, he came to Michigan and gave a little workshop. So I'm going to call him up and see if he and David Clark will do a podcast with us.
I'll watch that.
I didn't want to do it until I had tried his, everyone reads the book, but not everybody uses it.
No, we haven't done it yet.
I've tried to use it. And,
have a good conversation.
I swore off exams a long time ago because I didn't think they were valid. But that book convinced me, why not give a final exam? The course is over. You're not using it to teach them anything.
Yeah.
Use it as a recertification of their learning. In a way, it's kind of what you're doing.
Right.
Giving a post-test just to see if the learning gains they got during all the assessments you already did stuck.
Yeah. Well, we're thinking maybe we let them choose when they're ready for the assessment.
That's a good idea.
Which is another way to...
But it's important to have time between when you do the first and the second, because it should all be about retention.
Yes.
Not what you know in the moment.
Yeah, because otherwise they could cram and...
We're all haunted by Father Guido Sarducci in the 5-Minute University. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, you're going to love it. I'll show you after this.
Okay.
He was one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live.
Oh, yeah.
And he did a skit where he, as a priest, he proposes this little idea.
5-minute university.
He's going to have a 5-minute university, and it's only going to cost $20.
Oh, no.
But he says the idea is in 5 minutes, he's going to teach you what the average college graduate remembers 5 years out of school.
That's terrible.
And it's funny because it's really sad. It's funny because it's kind of true.
It's kind of true. So, I mean, you have to base your educational methods on the neuroscience of learning. And
that's right.
You have to make formative pieces of information that stay and stick. And
and to get into long-term memory, there's repetition and time and coming back to it.
Yeah, you need
that's
to be able
why
to dream
the final
about
exam makes sense, because that's a good test of whether they'll retain the material in the future.
And what I think of the math lab that I did this semester, for example, I think of it as pre-allocation, both neurologically and as coding speak of, I'm going to pre-allocate a neuron of yours, and you're not going to totally understand right now the full implications and the depth of this material. But when you come back to it, because one of the things I did, the module that I developed in the math lab was around a stress opticon. So there's these birefringent materials, which between polarized filters, if you stress them, they make these beautiful rainbow patterns. And it is really, to me, because I love art and engineering and the mesh between them, to me, that was like an exciting way to teach students about materials science and strength of materials and stress concentrations. And I remember seeing that in graduate school and being just, all of my neurons lit up when I saw that. It was like, okay, I'm going to really want to dive into the math now because I get it. I see an example experimentally of what that means to have a stress field, right? So I'm showing that to first-year students, and I'm telling them, I know you're all overwhelmed about the math and Kirch's solution, to the hole in an infinite plate. And the math here is big, but we're going to break it down to a very small part that's going to tie back into your math calculus class. But what I'm hoping is that I'm pre-allocating, and I told them this, I'm pre-allocating some of your neurons so that when you come back to it later, it's going to make so much more sense. And I told them...
And you'll remember it forever.
Yes, that's what I'm hoping. So if you understand and you leverage the neuroscience of learning, then you're going to have better outcomes.
Right.
But I've already warned both the students in the class and my upper administration. I said, I don't think that the evaluations of this class, of the students self-reporting how well they're doing and what they got out of it is going to be great right now. Because it was like up here. Yeah. And they're going to be really a little bit overwhelmed. They're going to say, that was too much. I don't know. I'm first year. I'm in Calc 2 and I didn't know what I was getting into. But the real outcome, and that comes back to the longitudinal value of tracking
Yeah.
with performance indicators that can look at long term. I think 2-3 years out from that math lab, that's when I really want to see when they come to me in mechanical engineering. Do they get it when they're in strength of materials?
Yeah.
Do they, like, the first time they see stress concentration charts for the K value, they're going to be like, those
Yep.
neurons are going to come back to life.
Yep.
And then they're going to gain depth and they're going to connect other things. And that's what I'm hoping for.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What a beautiful way to go from thinking about ABET evaluation to a two-step assessment to that. That's big. That's great.
It's all interconnected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's gotten quiet, which means our reception probably is starting.
Probably.
So we should probably
Yes,
get
it
going.
is
Well,
starting.
thank you
Thanks.
so much. And thank you all the listeners for tuning in. Hopefully we'll get the audio to work well with all the loud noises behind us. But thank you very much, Christina.
Steve,
Appreciate
thank you. It is always a pleasure to speak with you. Such
All right.
inspirational conversations, truly. Thank you.
Thank you.